Over the course of the next week, I'm going to be ranking my top 10 quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs heading into the 2020 college football season. Today, we're going to be starting with my top 10 quarterbacks. Now, these are both a list of quarterbacks who I think are going to be the 10 best for the 2020 season, but they're also who I'm most excited to see this upcoming year. Now, there are a lot of good quarterbacks that are going to be playing this upcoming year, so it was really hard to limit this list to only 10. Before I get to my list, make sure to subscribe if you love college football and turn on those notifications so you don't miss an upload. Now, as I mentioned, there's a lot of guys that didn't crack my top 10, so before we get to the official countdown, I want to go over some of my honorable mentions first. Ian Book is returning for his third and final season as the starting quarterback for Notre Dame. Through his first 2 years as a starter, Book has thrown for 5,700 yards and 53 touchdowns while only throwing 13 interceptions. He completes about 65% of his passes, so he's a fairly accurate quarterback. Book has been really consistent while being the starter. He's gone 20-3 and led the Irish to a playoff berth back in 2018. Now, the only knock I have on Book is that he doesn't really perform in big games. Against Clemson in the playoff game a few years back, he completed 50% of his passes while throwing 160 yards and no touchdowns. Last year against Georgia, he did throw 2 touchdowns, but also threw 2 costly interceptions. Finally, on the road against Michigan, he completed 32% of his passes for only 73 yards. Now, what do these 3 games have in common? Well, these are the 3 games he's lost while as the starter. Now, if Book can win big games for Notre Dame in 2020, he can cement himself as a top 10 quarterback. Due to the fact he hasn't started a game yet, Spencer Rattler just misses the top 10. Now, when it's all said and done, I fully expect Rattler to be near the leaderboards for 2020 in a lot of these categories, but he just hasn't proven it yet. Now, we know Lincoln Riley is a quarterback god and that every quarterback he touches turns to gold, so there's no reason to not be high on this former top recruit. All 3 of Riley's quarterbacks in Oklahoma have been at least Heisman Trophy finalists since he took over in 2017. Spencer Rattler was also the only quarterback 247 Sports rated as a 5-star in the class of 2019. But, as I mentioned, I want to see him prove it to us first. Kyle Trask got the chance to start last season and made the most of his opportunity. He threw for just under 3,000 yards while completing 67% of his passes. He also looked good against really tough competition, including LSU, Auburn, and Georgia last year. Now, his numbers may not be Heisman worthy, but I wouldn't be shocked if Kyle Trask can lead the Gators to a potential SEC title game. After losing Jake Fromm to the NFL draft, the Bulldogs may be getting an upgrade at the position. Jamie Newman transfers in from Wake Forest, where he put up over 3,500 yards of offense and 30 touchdowns last season. Now, it will be interesting to see how he fares against SEC competition as opposed to ACC competition. Last year, in arguably Wake Forest's biggest game, he struggled against Clemson. He threw for only 41 yards and 2 interceptions. Now, the potential is there, but as I mentioned with Spencer Rattler, he just needs to prove it. Alright, those are my honorable mentions. Let's get to the official countdown. After spending 3 years at Texas, Shane Buechele returns to SMU for his second and final season. He was great for the Mustangs last year, throwing for nearly 4,000 yards and 34 touchdowns. His best game last year came against Temple, where he threw for nearly 500 yards to go along with 6 touchdowns. SMU won their first 8 games last year, but dropped 3 of their final 5. I fully expect Buechele to put up solid numbers again and hopefully lead the Mustangs to another 10-win season. There are a lot of early 2021 NFL mock drafts that have Brock Purdy as a potential first-round pick should he decide to leave at the end of this year. When he does decide to leave, he very likely can go down as the greatest Iowa State quarterback in program history. He was 18 yards shy last year, becoming the first Cyclone to ever throw for 4,000 yards in a single season. He threw 27 touchdowns and 9 interceptions while also adding 8 touchdowns on the ground. In addition to nearly throwing for 4,000 yards, he also broke Cyclone quarterback records for completions, passing yards, passing touchdowns, 300-yard passing games, and total yards of offense. If all goes right in 2020, I fully expect Purdy to break all those records again this year. In case you forgot, D'Eriq King was one of the most exciting players in the country in 2018 with Houston. He threw 36 touchdowns and rushed for 14, giving him 50 total touchdowns with 3,700 yards of total offense in only 11 games. Now, he only appeared in 4 games for Houston last year, but he did still have 10 touchdowns. He's a freak athlete as he started as a wide receiver in his first 2 years with the Cougars. He transferred to Miami this offseason for his final year of eligibility. He'll lead a talented Hurricanes offense where he's primed to make a Heisman push. Now, I'm not sure whether or not he can get 50 total touchdowns again, but I fully expect King to light it up this season and make Miami one of the more exciting teams in the country. Tanner Morgan returns to Minnesota where he'll get his second full year as a starter. He's done nothing but win games since becoming the Gophers starting quarterback a few years back, going 15-4. He led the Gophers to 11 wins last year, including an Outback Bowl victory over Auburn. He became the first quarterback in school history to throw a touchdown pass in every game of the season, and also set a school record with a passing touchdown in 14 straight contests. Morgan's 3,200 yards of total offense last year set a school sophomore record as well. He'll return in 2020 with expectations the highest they've been in a while for the Minnesota Gophers. Luckily for Morgan, he'll benefit greatly by having one of the best wide receivers in the country to throw to. One of the most underrated quarterbacks in the country, Jayden was one of only a few true freshmen to start at quarterback for their team last year, and he was great for the Sun Devils. He threw for 3,000 yards, had 20 total touchdowns, and only threw 2 interceptions. He also led ASU to great wins on the road at Michigan State and at home against Oregon. Though only a freshman, he had ice in his veins, as he had 4 game-winning drives last year. Arizona State had one of the best wide receiver classes for recruiting this past offseason, so Daniels is going to have quite the weapons surrounding him moving forward. Vince Young, Colt McCoy, Sam Ehlinger. Though he may not be at their level quite yet, he very well could be should things go right for the Longhorns in 2020. Ehlinger is entering his final year as the quarterback for Texas and is in prime position for his team to compete for a Big 12 title and maybe even a playoff spot. He threw for 3,700 yards and 32 touchdowns last year, while adding 7 touchdowns and 700 yards on the ground. Ehlinger has been a touchdown machine over the last 2 years, as he's accounted for 80 total touchdowns over his last 27 games, the second most in college football during that stretch. This guy wasn't even USC's starting quarterback entering the 2019 season. An injury led to Keeton Slovis getting an opportunity, and he turned it in one of the better seasons in the country. He threw for 3,500 yards and 30 touchdowns while completing 72% of his passes. Slovis won 5 of the final 6 games of the regular season, throwing for 2,300 yards and 21 touchdowns. He'll be their full-time guy in 2020 and likely has the chance to break some single-season USC records. As a true freshman, Sam Howell cemented himself as one of the best quarterbacks in college football. He threw for 3,600 yards, including 38 touchdowns, the most ever by an ACC freshman and the third most in conference history. He also threw only 7 interceptions on 422 pass attempts. With an improved North Carolina team and another year under his belt, is there a chance Howell and the Tar Heels can compete in the ACC in 2020? I fully think so. For his first full season as a starter, Justin Fields didn't disappoint. He threw 41 touchdowns and had only 3 interceptions, all while completing 67% of his passes. He also added 500 yards and 10 touchdowns on the ground. Now, we already know what he can do, and he's likely going to replicate those numbers again in 2020. If he can remain healthy, Ohio State will yet again be national championship contenders. As expected, Trevor Lawrence enters the 2020 season as the best quarterback in college football. He led the Tigers to a national title in his freshman year and almost won a second title this past season. This year will likely be his final year, as many expect him to be the number 1 pick in the 2021 NFL Draft. In 15 games last year, Lawrence threw 3,700 yards while completing 66% of his passes. He threw 36 touchdowns, 6 more than the year prior. He also added nearly 600 yards and 9 touchdowns on the ground as well. He'll enter the season as the Heisman favorite, and we'll likely see him appearing in his 3rd straight national championship game. So that wraps up my list for the top 10 quarterbacks entering the 2020 college football season. Do you agree with my list? Leave a comment below with your top 10 or maybe just your top 5 quarterbacks that you're most excited to see this upcoming year. Also, let me know if there's any players I didn't include in my top 10 or honorable mentions that you think are deserving of being on that list. As I mentioned, I'll also be having my top 10 wide receivers and top 10 running back videos posted in the next week, so if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss those.